I should probably know what the War of the Realms means, but I don't. It's some kind of a event, I guess. I've seen it on a few of the books I've looked at, but it kind of feels to me like, when people take those Econobox cars and they'll paint the Go Fast stripes on them. The Go Fast stripes don't actually make the car any faster, and War of the Realms, a Marvel event, doesn't make the comic book any more interesting, especially when you see this name on the book, Simone. That is a very, very bad sign. But oddly enough, it starts pretty well. New York Stock Exchange. I don't recall if that's where the NASDAQ and the other one is located, because there's a NASDAQ sign inside. Maybe they're both there. I kind of don't think they're both together. So maybe this is the NASDAQ. Anyway, it starts well. It's kind of interesting, and then it kind of goes downhill from there. This is Tony Stark, Ironman 13. It's a social justice warrior comic, but it's subtle. The opening, or the secondary scene, I guess, is the title character looking cool. Then the purse puppy and the purse puppy. They're both purse puppies. This is the female purse puppy with what looks like blue hair, but it's probably just a reflection, and the African American purse puppy. And I'm not disparaging females or African Americans. However, I am disparaging the way people like Gail Simone use females and African Americans. They use them as their swords and their shields. It's sad, and it's why the term purse puppy was invented. I believe your boy Zach created that term, though I'm not entirely sure. And it's supposed to remind you of the Paris Hilton types who have these little dogs, which I do adore, but they keep them in their purses. Anyway, this is the 13th issue, and it has subtle SJW tropes in it. One of the common themes is, if the main character is of European origin and male, the writers will surround him with women or non-Europeans who will take subtle jabs at him to bring him down. Some of the art's pretty good. I don't know why he's wearing a skirt, though. Can someone explain why he has what looks like two skirts on? Is that a metal skirt, like some kind of Roman thing? And I don't know what's going on here. Is it supposed to be sexy? Gail Simone wrote this one, and Gail has some serious issues with men, especially raining frogs. It's raining frogs. Your boy Zach also coined the term silly Billy. I believe he coined that term, and it is an excellent term to describe something biblical like raining frogs, and Marvel's ability to screw it up and just make it absolutely childish silly. Look at that. Can you see this frog's expression? When you think silly Billy, this is what you can think. Oh, look at this little frog. Oh, isn't that cute? Look, he has his mouth open. These are some pretty good sized frogs. I don't know if they're frogs or toads. I'm not expert in amphibians. I really hope they're amphibians. If it's raining frogs, these guys look like they weigh, I don't know, half a pound, 500 grams. If they hit the ground, they're just going to splatter. They don't have wings. They don't actually fly. So this would be like that show when they drop turkeys out of the helicopter. If you remember that show from the 80s or the 70s, whatever the hell it was. Anyway, frogs don't fly. I think turkeys would have a better chance. Oh, look, he's got a toad on his head. Look at that. What's his personality? Oh, he's black. That's his personality. What's her Oh, she's a woman. Does she have any? No, they're just female and African American. What's his personality? Well, he actually has personality. He has a troubled personality because they can write a complex character for Iron Man because he doesn't have to be a purse puppy, which ironically enough makes the character makes him the most interesting character. Gail Simone. She can't simply allow Tony Stark to be heroic. Tony has the wrong skin color. I kind of always assumed Stark was vaguely from the Mediterranean area. Spanish or Portuguese or Italian or something. Or even Mexican or from South America. Gail Simone is like that weird friend you have that can't give a compliment without an insult riding along. I think you missed a line in the program, Stark. See, she's subtly correcting him. He chimes in, it's raining frogs. I can see that, Team Obvious. This is a weird... If I was a kid reading this... Well, I mean, nowadays, this is what comics are like. But if I was a kid 20 or 30 years ago reading this, I wouldn't understand why they were speaking to Iron Man this way. It's not like they need to just blindly respect him, but Iron Man has some great accomplishments under his belt. It's like speaking to a commanding officer or something. To speak to him this lightly is kind of weird. That's it. You're grounded, mister. You can't control your wardrobe. That makes you a liability. Maybe you're right. This is not how you speak to the hero. This is how a teacher or a parent speaks to a child. That's it? You're grounded, mister? I didn't even notice that double... not really a double entendre, but it does have a double meaning because it reminds you of a teacher or a parent. This stuff, the more I look at this, it just gets worse and worse. Anyway, there are a couple of scenes where the female and the African-American guy put Tony in his place. 20 years ago, kids would look up from this book in confusion. Iron Man is the hero. The comic is named Iron Man. It's not named ancillary female character and African-American purse puppy. 20 years ago, a kid would write a letter to the editor and ask who the hell the writer thought she was. But things have changed a lot in 20 years. 20 years ago, comics didn't have this anti-European, anti-male sentiment. And 20 years ago, comics were selling better than they are now. Coincidence? I think not. Take a dozen of the top-selling books of the 80s and compare it to the top-selling books of current year. The anti-American male vibe will shock you. I never knew there were so many evil, blonde-haired and blue-eyed men. Or sometimes you'll see, in comics, the bad people are always blonde-haired, blue-eyed, or red-haired and green-eyed. Okay, first of all, most of the world is black-haired and black-eyed. And then the next biggest chunk of the global population is brown-haired and brown-eyed. That's most of the world. Eye color is very, very rare. Having blonde hair is very rare. Having red hair is the most rarest group you can have. A red-haired, green-eyed person is only found in a few parts of Europe. Why does Iron Man have a dress? And why are we seeing up his skirt? Is this supposed to arouse me? Because it's not arousing me. Iron Man upskirt is something I never wanted. Am I misgendering Iron Man? Is this a she now? He's wearing a dress. And he's blocking the money shot by keeping his leg in place. I mean, why tease us? If you're going to show us, just show us a little iron booty or something. I don't know. Then he's talking about I turned my addiction for money into addiction for booze. A lot of people got hurt either way. There's nothing wrong with making money. I know the people in Marvel and DC and the rest are all socialists or pseudo-socialists or socialists in name only, and they think NASDAQ is the New York Stock Exchange are just horrible, horrible things. But NASDAQ is part of the reason why America is so amazingly successful. The business of America is business, and this is why people come to America, because it's the land of opportunity. Anyway, take a look at the writers and editors from the 80s and the modern years. I have no doubt that the majority of guys in comics in the 80s were left-leaning. But to be left of center in the 80s would probably not make you left of center today. Things have changed. Oh, this just hurts to read. Oddly enough, I kind of like that. I thought that was interesting. No matter their politics, writers in the 80s and 90s kept their axe grinding to a minimum. And another thing, the writers and editors in the past were men. Are men better comic writers than women? Oh, Bianca, be careful here. Yes, men are better comic book writers than women, no question. The reason should be obvious. Boys grow up reading comics. Little girls don't grow up reading comics. This shouldn't be non-politically... this passive aggressiveness of the Stanley soapbox. I've seen this one so many times about the racism and bigotry. I'm sure they would love to excise this last portion about concept that man was created in the image of God, a God who calls us all his children. Pax et Justia. Justia. I think that means peace and justice. I'm sure they would love to rewrite this whole thing. It's just... but anyway, my point is, I've seen these. They include this specific one in many, many comics. You would think they would take an assortment of the great Stan Lee's soapbox, but no, I seem to see this particular one quite a few times. It's a little bit cringe. Boys reading comics. Yeah, it's not politically correct to say that male comic book writers are better than female comic book writers, but it's true because boys grow up reading comics. Girls, for the most part, there are exceptions, do not. Do you think Gail Simone, Sana Amanat, Heather Antos, and the rest grew up with comics? Can we stop being politically correct for a minute here? The Milkshake Girls and most of the other women in comics didn't get their positions based on merit. We all know it. Even Gail Simone said in an interview that she stopped reading comics when she started high school. Then she went on to be a hairdresser and start a family. Then somehow she found herself writing comics. None of this would be a problem if she could actually write good comics, but she can't. Gail Simone is not a good writer. She isn't horrible, and she has potential, but she isn't ready for the prime time. So why is she there? Because diversity or something. Because mainstream comics don't have a lot of women working in comics because women don't buy comics. Take a look at the Milkshake Girls. Pretty young girls in their 20s who have probably never read a comic in their life. They didn't get hired on merit. They got hired because they are pretty young girls who are SJWs. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a few women who read comics as kids, but Sana Amanat, Gail Simone, Heather Antos, and the rest, they aren't them. If Marvel wanted some good moderate writers, they should hire Mecha Random 42 and that Star Wars girl. But mainstream comics aren't interested in selling comics. They want to push propaganda. Anyway, at the end of the story, Gail writes Tony blowing smoke up his girlfriend's back hole. It feels like one of those weird fake compliments. He's talking about how he's a troubled alcoholic and very imperfect, but his girlfriend is amazing because she performed a task well within her capability. Women aren't amazing just because they have vaginas. Penises and vaginas aren't magic. Well, they might be magic for 20 minutes at a time, but that's about it. You should never put women on pedestals because you shouldn't put anyone on a pedestal. It's not fair to them or you. Some of this stuff works pretty well. Ironman has to strap on his old steel suit. Take a look at that. And it's, meant to make you think of a knight all geared up fighting the dragon. And it works pretty well. It's a great idea, and the visuals work very well. The art is okay. It's just that the writing is so stupid. So this is probably the most interesting part of the book, when you see a knight in shining armor beating up a dragon with his bare hands. Too bad they couldn't give him a lance or something. Anyway, I'll keep this short because I discovered a comic called American Carnage. There are 13 issues of this NPC garbage, and I will try to review a few of them. I get the feeling after a few issues I won't be able to withstand the cringe. What does he say here? He asked his girlfriend was helping him, lead the dragon away. She's a superhero, right? That's what she's supposed to do, behave heroically and perform these complicated tasks. She didn't require an explanation. I asked her to do the impossible, and she just went and did it for me. irresponsible, imperfect me. Well, she's also imperfect, and she can probably be irresponsible also. It's not an impossible task to lead the dragon on a wild goose chase while you, I don't know, gather your forces or whatever the hell you did. I already forgot after reading this 10 minutes ago, because it's, it's modern Marvel. It's very, very forgettable. My point is that Gail Simone can't just write Tony Stark as an interesting character. She has to try to bring him down a little bit, and try to elevate her by bringing him down and putting her on a pedestal. The whole thing is really cringy. Yeah, I hate magic, yeah. How do his arms... Is that articulation accurate? I don't know if his shoulder joints are bending at the right... I don't know, maybe putting a guy in armor is kind of a hard sell anyway. Anyway, this is to be continued in Ironman 14, which has everyone's favorite character. I forget this guy's... Okay, what... Is that does that become a man with short hair? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That actually is masculine. That almost looks like sideburns. Where are my breasts? Where is my butt? Women have butts and they have breasts because they're mammals. You feed your young with your breasts. Mammary glands. They're not men with long hair. Stop making them men with long hair. It's really freaking weird. When people talk, kind of these tinfoil hat people, they talk about these agendas. And, if you brought up these weird agendas that these tinfoil hat people talk about 10 years ago, I would have just laughed and told you you're crazy. I'm not laughing anymore, because a lot of the stuff I'm seeing is really, really weird. But I won't get into it I'll get into it on the my BitChute channel, because YouTube is very, very strange.